Lecture 2, The Buddhist Revolution. The most profound Buddhist activism, suggests monk and scholar Bhikkhu Bodhi, is transcending the us versus them mentality, which inflicts itself on so much political discourse of the right and the left. This is because the whole dichotomy of good and evil has no place in Buddhism. But awareness of the existence of suffering in the world evokes in us a feeling of universal responsibility, says the Dalai Lama. Anyone feeling compassion, seeing no boundary between self and others, would feel compelled to do something, notes Nelson Foster, co-founder of the Buddhist Peace Fellowship. The Thai reformer Sulak Sivaraksa echoes this contention about the nature or essence of Buddhism. Religion means deep commitment and personal transformation. To be of help, we must become more selfless and less selfish. To do this, we have to take more and more moral responsibility in society. This is the essence of religion, from ancient times right up to the present. Sivaraksa feels that Westerners have been relatively ignorant of Buddhism's social dimension, and further maintains, if Buddhism has appeared disengaged to Westerners, it is due to Western influences. Many Westerners think Buddhism is only for deep meditation and personal transformation, that it has nothing to do with society. Buddhism would not be engaged if the Buddha had decided not to teach the Eightfold Path in Sarnath, and had simply retreated under a palm tree, sipping on coconut juice, and wallowing in his newfound contentment. Buddhist activism began, says Robert Thurman, when Buddha decided he would not run a kingdom and instead started a monastic army. Leaving aside language of engagement, or its opposite, Buddhist practice in essence, according to writer Stephen Batchelor, is one in which a person tries to seek and balance wisdom with compassion. Traditionally, these have been seen as the two wings of a bird. This tension between insight and understanding on the one hand, and a compassionate response to the world on the other, is a classic tension. If one starts from there, the whole notion of making an issue out of engagement becomes superfluous. Buddhism is based on service to others, wrote Walpola Rahula in the 1946 Buddhist classic What the Buddha Taught. Rahula argued on historical grounds that political and social engagement was the heritage of the bhikkhu and the essence of Buddhism. Wisdom arises from seeing deeply the true interdependence of oneself and the world. Mindfulness contains the additional meaning of remembering the interrelatedness of all beings. Who can forget the image of Avalokiteshvara, or Kuan Yin, who sees and hears the cries of the world and has 1,000 arms to help? Once there is seeing, there must be acting, teaches Thich Nhat Hanh. Engaged Buddhism is just Buddhism. If you practice Buddhism in your family, in society, it is engaged Buddhism. Joanna Macy agrees that disengaged Buddhism is a Western construction. Early Western scholars of Buddhism, beginning with Max Weber, have perceived Buddhism as otherworldly and without specific concern for social ethics. They understood Buddhism's goal to be a complete release from the world. Yet the Pali scriptures abound in passages where the Buddha deals explicitly with social ethics, and many more cases where the social implications are certainly obvious. Why then did Ken Jones write, in one of the earliest monographs on engaged Buddhism, The Social Face of Buddhism, that present-day interest in Buddhist activism has little warranty in scripture, history, or tradition? Nelson Foster maintains that it's clear from the Pali text that early Buddhism was aware of itself as a force for social good, but as Buddhism moved into China, its social orientation changed quickly and thoroughly. Gary Snyder explained further. The Chinese worldview, and later the Japanese, precluded a significant role for Buddhism. Chinese society effectively bottled up the social impulse in Buddhism and therefore set the direction of Zen. Whether or not socially active Buddhism is new or an essential, if latent, part of the Buddhist teaching from the start, the world human beings inhabit has changed profoundly. Buddha did not live in a time like ours, when dangerous competition between nations threatened to blow up the entire world. He was not faced with the probability of biological or ecological global holocaust. Queen argues that engaged Buddhism is radically different from the Mahayana path of altruism because it is directed to the creation of new social institutions and new social relationships in response to new conditions. While Buddhism has always addressed social needs, says Queen, the new Buddhism is endowed with a sensitivity to social injustice, institutional evil, and political oppression as sources of human suffering. That has not been central to Buddhist analysis in the past.